Welcome back to another fractions lesson with me, Mr. Duclos. Today, our objective is to represent the multiplication of n times a over b as n times a over b, using the associative property and visual models. Let's jump right in. Before we do our practice problems, let's go over some of the definitions in our objective. The first one we're going to go over is variable. A variable is when we use a letter to represent any number. We don't know what the number is, but we have our equation, so we'll use variables. But if I was actually doing a problem, these variables would be numbers. So for example, it could be 3 times 2 over 4. The variables are just there to help us know where things go. The n will be the 3, the a is the 2, and the b is a 4. And this is our equation. So if we were given different numbers, let's say 4, 5, and 6, the equation stays the same, it's just our variables that change. The second thing that we're going to go over is the associative property. The associative property means that no matter how you move multiplication around, you're going to come out with the same answer. And the example that I have right here is 5 times 4 times 2. 5 times 4 times 2 is equal to 40. But it can also be written 5 times 4, which is 20, times 2, which is 40. So what the associative property is telling us is that no matter how we order our multiplication, we're going to come up with the same answer. Whether we do it like this, whether we do it like this, or we could do it a different way. We could have done it like this. 5 times 2 times 4, and that would have given us 10 times 4, which equals 40. So whichever way you put the numbers in whatever order you want, you're always going to come up with the same answer. Now that we've done a brief review of variables and associative property, let's get into our practice problems. So right here, we have a fractions addition problem that we are going to solve using a visual model and by using multiplication. So the first thing I want to do is I want to figure out what 7/8 plus 7/8 plus 7/8 is using a visual model. The reason I'm using a visual model is so that I can check my work later to see if they match up, because I feel very comfortable using a visual model. I'm going to use a tape diagram, and I'm going to draw it pretty simply. So I have my tape diagram. And that's made up of 3 different 7/8. 7 over 8, 7 over 8, 7 over 8. So this would be a 7/8, this would be a 7/8, and this would be 7/8. Then all I have to do is add my 7s. 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 7 is 21. So that's going to equal 21 over 8. Now let's move on to the associative property and use multiplication to see if we come up with the same answer. So I'm going to rewrite my problem like this. 7/8 plus 7/8 plus 7/8. Well, if I look at it, I can see that I have 1, 2, 3. I have 7/8 3 times. I can also look at my diagram and see that I have 7/8 3 times. So that means that we're going to have 3 times 7 over 8. I'm now going to use the associative property. Because when I do 3 times 7 over 8, it's not 3 over 3 times 7 over 8. It's just 3 times 7 over 8. If it was 3 over 3, then we multiply 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 times 8 is 24. But that's not what we're doing. We're multiplying it by 3. And you could almost think of that, since it is the same, as saying 3 over 1. When you're dealing with a whole number, it's the same as saying that number over 1. So 3 times 7 over 8 is equal to 3 times 7 over 8. And if that's the case, then this answer should come out to be the same as this. Well, 3 times 7 is 21, and 8 stays the same. So now I know that I've done this the right way. I use the associative property to take my 3 times 7/8 to make it 3 times 7 over 8. And that should make the problem a little bit easier, because now we're not multiplying fractions. We're multiplying whole numbers within a fraction, and we all know how to multiply. Let's try another one and see what we can do. Now we're going to do 2 problems. The first way we're going to do each problem is by using the associative property and multiplication. When we're done, we're going to use the tape diagram in order to check our work. Let's jump into it. Our first problem is 7 times 2 over 9 is equal to some number. Well, if we remember our formula, n, which is the same as 7 in this case, times a over b, the 2 is the a and the 9 is the b, is equal to n times a over b. And now I'm just going to substitute my numbers in. So the 7 is the n, so we have 7. The a is 2 times 2 over b over 9. And when you do that out, you get 7 times 2, which is 14, over 9. So now we have our answer as 14 over 9. But now, because I'm new to this, and because we're still trying to learn how to do multiplication in fractions, I'm going to check my work using a tape diagram, because that's a method that I know really well. So, if I look at it, I have 2/9. First I'll draw my tape diagram. Make it a little bigger. I have 2/9, and I have 2/9 7 times. So I'm going to have 2 over 9, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 over 9, and 2 over 9. And I'm not worried that they're all in equal parts. I know with fractions that they're supposed to be in equal parts. I'm using this as a visual representation to help me get the right answer. So then I can count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 over 9. I can see that my 2 answers do indeed match up. So I know that most likely I've gotten the answer correct. Let's do the next one. So for our next problem, we're going to do 5 times 6 over 7. And the first thing we're going to do is put it in our new algorithm. The n is 5, the a is 6, and the b is 7. So in our new equation, we'll have 5 times 6 over 7. 5 times 6 is equal to 30, and the 7 comes over, so 30 over 7. Now that should be our answer. But just to make sure, just to double check, I'm going to now draw a tape diagram. So on the bottom here, I draw my tape diagram. And I have 6 over 7 5 times. So I'm going to break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4, giving me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have 6 over 7 in each one. So 6 over 7, 6 over 7, 6 over 7, 6 over 7, 6 over 7. And then I can add 6, 12, 18, 24, 30 over 7. 30 over 7. So now that I've done this problem using multiplication and the associative model, and with a tape diagram or a visual model, I know with almost certainty, with strong confidence, that my answer of 30 over 7 is going to be correct. Now let's move on to one of your independent problems. So in front of me, I have the first problem of your independent work on the Google Forms. If you're using Seesaw, that's okay, that's great. But when you're done, instead of doing the Google form, you're going to go and do your Seesaw assignment. So the first problem on the Google Forms says, use multiplication to solve. Write your answers as a mixed or whole number. And I underlined multiplication because that's how they want us to solve the problem. Even if we think we can solve it a different way, we want to use the way that they were asked because it's asking us so. Now we're going to move on to your independent work. I'm going to do the first problem on the Google Forms, and then you're going to go and finish your assignment on your own. If you're using Seesaw, that's okay. When we're done, you'll go on to Seesaw. So our first problem says, use multiplication to solve. Write your answers as a mixed or whole number. Well, we have 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. I underlined multiplication because that's how it's asking us to solve. Even if I think I can solve it a different way, a little bit easier, I need to do it the way I'm being asked so that way I get practice and can eventually solve problems in lots of different ways. The second thing I underlined is mixed or whole numbers, because that's telling me how I have to answer the question. I can't just answer it as a fraction if I can turn it into a mixed or a whole number. If I can, I have to do that. So I have 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4 plus 3/4. And from what I can see, that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 times 3 over 4. But now I'm going to use what we just did. I'm going to use the associative property to change that into 4 times 3 over 4. And 4 times 3 is 12, and the 4 comes over, so it's 12 over 4. But that's written only as a fraction, and I need to write it as a mixed number. So I'm going to take that 12 over 4, and I know that if I'm counting up by 4s, I have 4, 8, 12. So there are 3 4s in 12. So 12 over 4 is equal to 3. So that finishes this work. It's now your job to go finish your independent work on your own. And after that, have a great day, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.